Good afternoon. This is Media Center, Ukraine, Odesa. We are starting for today. Our speakers, Dmytro Pletenchuk, spokesman for the Ukrainian Navy. Dmytro, what is the situation at this sea front line? The situation in the sea is rather stable, but there are some changes, including the increased number of ships in the sea, 4 ships there, and no missile carrier is there. There is only one missile carrier at one of the bases, and this is a very important fact because they use these sea platforms to attack our coastline. There is the question related to the activities of the so-called border guard services near Kerch Strait, which is a marine zone of Ukraine, and only Ukraine can issue warnings in that area. And we informed about this on the 20th of July this year, saying that that navigation area is unsafe. And we know that Russian occupiers do not listen to this, and sometimes we can see incidents at the sea involving their boats and vessels. One of them was Olenegorsk Gornyak. And now the condition of that ship is not that good. And these are the main trends. We can see 7 boats and 7 ships, and there are 14 units and Kerch Straits owned by the border guard service of the Russian Federation. And they have increased the number in the Azov Sea, and they used to have 3 units there. They now have 3 units there, and usually they have only 1 duty there because they believe that the Azov Sea is theirs because of the occupation on that part of Ukraine. But you can see that they have increased the number of ships there, and they stopped using big vessels as ferries. And the story with Olenegorsk Gornyak is very interesting, and that was a sign to south ports, and that was it was among 6 units that were brought to the water area of the Black Sea at the beginning of the full-scale invasion to land to our coastline. But they could only use that landing ship to transport civilians across the Kerch Strait. And the example of this ship is very significant. The whole Russian Black Sea Fleet should expect the same. And we can see repetition here already. We can remember about 1815-4, the Crimean War and its results for the Russian Empire, and we believe that the history will repeat. I have a question about Olenegorsk Gornyak. Russian telegram channels informed that it sank after it was brought to the quay. And we're still trying to find evidence of that. It is very difficult to receive information from the occupied territories, especially from the enemy's territories. In the morning, we saw the information that they still try to tow it to the dock for repairs, but we can see that they will do everything possible to save that big landing ship, which is a very important unit. And if it will have the same destiny as another big ship that felt a bit sick in the port of Berdansk last year, that would be a significant blow for the Black Sea Fleet. And the last question before I give floor to my colleague. The ship was used as a ferry for civilians, and this means that the missile attacks on bridges, including that of Chengar, and I have now impressions that they try to make island from Crimea, just for them to control all, for the Ukrainian army to control all entries or exits. We can remember about the saying that Crimea could be either Ukrainian or there will be no people, and the Russian army considers as the hub for them. And the main aim is to cut this this hub of theirs from the logistic channel. They have the so-called land corridor that they use also for civilians. And this is quite in difficult conditions because of the security issues. So it works in reverse regime for civilian vehicles, but there is still a railway connection, which is the main logistics tool for the Russian Federation, for the Russian army. And now I would like to give floor to our colleagues. Olga Donska, TV channel My Ukraina. The question about the Russian blockade, the blockade of the ships trying to call Ukrainian ports. What is the situation now? There was the information that some of the vessels broke through that blockade. You see, Olga, we cannot say that this is the full 100% blockade, because for that, they need to bring quite a big number of ships to the sea and physically block that area, or to attack that area. And they do not risk to bring their ships to the sea, because they are now even afraid of staying in Sevastopol, because they don't feel calm there as well. And we can see that they put their units in the northern and eastern part of the Black Sea, because they are afraid of being attacked in the Black Sea. That's why they cannot physically block that area, but still they have a lot of ships there, so theoretically they are capable of that. And now they just use, so to say, verbal terrorism. So they threaten, they warn, and this is there. I can prove this, but we cannot talk here about physical blockade. And the second option is to attack those ships. And you know, the ships are extraterrestrial and extraterritorial, and we should look at the flag of the vessel. And I'm not sure that Russia will dare to attack foreign vessels, because we can see the flags of all countries there, starting from Turkey up to China, and I doubt that they will dare to attack those vessels. The coastal navigation still works. The Danube ports are operative, as you know, and so the situation is more or less stable. And clarifying question, do you have information about how many vessels were able to break through that blockade? Just several, just a few of them. But this is general information that you can find from the internet. You can use the tool Marine Traffic, and you can just find this information by yourselves. This is not a military secret. This is civilian information. And you can see that quite a big number of vessels continue going en route through commercial channels. So I wouldn't call this a blockade or the breaking through blockade. The next question, please. The mic, please.
Rego from Mega TV, Florida, United States. I have two questions for you, and I will appreciate it if you could get us more details. My first question is, we know really what is the situation in Odesa on this moment, but as you are the commander here and you know the situation, we expecting in the next few days a big combat here in Odessa, and how do you protect the civilian people stay in the city on this moment?
Я маю одразу сказати,
I would like to say that this is the question in the area of responsibility of the Operative Command South. And our area of responsibility is the Azov Sea, the Black Sea area, and Crimea. As for the defense of the coast, this is the question to the Operative Command South, which is responsible for the south of Ukraine.
For you is, we receive information, you recently received a new weapons from Germany. That is true, and that weapon will be using against the Black Sea float to the Russian at the moment?
на це питання може відповісти вам
And only the Ministry of Defense, the General Staff, can provide information about this when it comes to foreign weapons. You should address those institutions respectively. And the next question, please. Good afternoon. My name is Anatoly Kosin, Media Center, Ukraine, Odesa. And I have the following question about that ship called Gornyak. Two Russians have such ships in the Black Sea that we can just dawn in Novorossiysk and in Sevastopol for them physically to be unable to get through the plot, as they did with our fleet in Crimea in 2014, when they just sank the ship. So you mean now they're closing the passage from the harbor to sink something there for that. But you know that this work should be organized there, the sport, and it is a very difficult task because you should be on that ship and the crew should work to do that because it is very difficult to catch a ship at exit or entry from the harbor. I think that is a difficult task to do. And that's why we cannot say now about blocking someone using a sunk ship. I'm not ready to provide this information. It is possible, theoretically, but this with that we should use some ships which are still there, so we would infiltrate there, just occupy a ship and then to sink it. So this is a very difficult task to do. If you allow, the question of marine troops. The New York Times just published the interview with representatives of one of the brigades involved in the counteroffensive. Could you share more details about the involvement of Marines, Marine Corps in these operations? As you know, that we are creating a full-fledged Marine Corps in our country that was announced by our president and the higher commander. And as of now, I can say that we have 4 brigades of Marine Corps, not to mention artillery. And this is quite a well-known brigade now that fought before the full-scale invasion, and it's now here in the south attacking enemy's units. All these are combat brigades. They now perform their duties in the south, and we can see the results. We can see that they not only defend their positions, but they conquer new positions. The newly created 36 brigade just managed to dawn the AK-52. So the process is ongoing. The brigades are there, and there are a lot of prospects for the development. Because we should remember that Crimea is just Navy, and we have still tasks to perform, and these brigades have already proved their efficiency. This is a very powerful combat organism, so to say. And I have a question about ships now, and I remember that the Great Britain just handed over 2 mine trawlers, but they cannot get to the Black Sea. And I remember that in Turkey they were supposed to construct corvettes for Ukraine, and one of them, Ivan Mazepa, is under the final stage or has already been constructed. Could you share details about this process, and will it be possible for such corvettes to be involved in the combat activities? The construction process is ongoing according to the plan. And the plan is 2024, 2025, when we will get that boat. The second one is under construction. So the process is ongoing according to established terms and procedures and deadlines. And this is when it comes to corvettes. As for trawlers like Sundown, 2 units have been handed over to Ukraine, and they will be included in the newly created anti-mine unit, anti-mine division, that will be involved in demining of the Black Sea. And we hope that we will be able to get additional anti-mine boats or ships from the Netherlands, and we hope that we will be able to get even more. Taking into consideration the mine danger in the Black Sea, this is a very important issue for us. Now these trawlers cannot get because Turkey just closed the Bosphorus channel, and but as soon as we get them, they will be involved in the massive scale anti-mine operation, and we hope that they will be able to involve our international partners, and especially those countries who have access to the Black Sea, Romania, Bulgaria, and the Turkish Republic, and also Georgia. The operation is under planning now. The headquarters is there, and Cyprus exercises and drills this year were dedicated to anti-mine operations. And the last question. Maybe this is beyond your area of responsibility. Just tell us if you can comment upon then. Recently, we've seen the announcement that perhaps the beaches will be open in the city of Odesa, in the region of Odesa. And we have a question about the mine danger. Is it possible to protect the coastline, the beaches, from the floating mines? It is possible from the technical point of view because we can we can demine and check the area near the beaches, near the coastline. We have the experts. We have the mobile demining group. They have demined more than 100 mines and ammunitions that they could find on the coast, on the beach, or in the water area near. So, and we can use the special net to keep those dangerous explosives in the area near the coastline. This is possible. Thank you. If there are no other questions, we've had Dmytro Pletenchuk with us, the spokesman for the Ukrainian Navy. Please stay tuned. We'll have something interesting for you in the future.